My kids always love Veggie Tales, and this is a book called Good Night, Duke. It is a story about being nice. So what's Duke supposed to do when the meanest knight in the whole kingdom challenges him? It says, join the crowd as Duke shows how to be nice to others, even when they're not being kind-hearted in return. That's when it's really hard to be nice to people, isn't it? When they're not being nice to you. We can be nice to people when they're being nice to us, but it's much harder when someone's unkind, and then we have to show kindness back. So let's see what happens in this story. A long time ago, in the kingdom of Scone, there lived a duke named, Duke. He was tall and green and handsome. In fact, he was probably a lot like you, if you're a cucumber. The Duke of Scone lived in a castle at the top of the hill. Right down the road lived his best friend, Petunia, and her mother-in-law, Nona. Nona complained a lot, but not Petunia. She was known as the sweetest person in the kingdom. She loved to bake cookies, cakes, and pies. All of them were sweet, but Petunia was sweeter. On the other side of the kingdom, in a dark, scary place, lived a really, really mean knight. Did I mention he was mean? His name was Bump in the Night. He was so mean that he didn't have any friends. He was so mean that his mother called him Sir. He was so mean that his dog wore armor. Bump lived a rotten life. The only thing he enjoyed doing was competing in duels, and he was very good at it. Here he is, Bump in the Night, the mean knight. Look at the dog wearing the armor. He looks afraid, doesn't he? Dogs shouldn't be afraid of their owners. Now, Duke loved to throw parties. He and the knights of the square table would water ski in the moat and play croquet in the lawn. Petunia would serve cookies. Nona would complain. I hate water, Nona would say. It's too wet. One day, while riding by Duke's castle, Bump saw something that made him angry. People at Duke's party were laughing. People were playing. People were having fun. Gasp. I used to love to water ski when I was little. And my sisters and I, we'd water ski, so there were 4 of us. There's 3. We'd all water ski at the same time. Bump never had fun, and he didn't want anyone else to either. So he yelled, Duke, I challenge you to a duel. I'll stop these silly parties once and for all. See, I told you he was mean. There will be 3 events in the duel: pie jousting, donut tossing, and pastry pulling, Bump said. Duke knew he had to face Bump. I accept the challenge, he said nervously. Word spread quickly. The people immediately began preparations and made signs to announce the duel. The winner would receive the most prized trophy of all, the golden spatula of Scone, and the loser would have to stop throwing loud, happy parties. So here he's challenging them. Here is the sign announcing first place would get the golden spatula. Despite his nervousness, Duke started to train, coached by the knights of the square table and their leader, Otis the Elevated. Otis watched Duke train and shook his head. You call that pie jousting? But Duke was determined, and he soon improved his jousting, tossing and pulling. He also got in a little water skiing. Finally, the big day arrived. The stadium was filled with fans, or, as so they like to be called, Sconeheads. Duke came into the stadium, and the Sconeheads cheered. When Bump entered, they booed. The first event was pie jousting. The knights got ready. The horses ran toward one another. The Sconeheads cheered. You know what they call them in Wisconsin? Cheeseheads. Duke turned to wave to his loyal fans. Big mistake. Wham, pow, splat. The next thing Duke knew, he was lying flat on his back. The bad news was that he lost the event. The good news was that he had pie on his face. It was banana cream. It says to say yum, but I really don't like banana cream and I just can't. Now, if it was chocolate cream, I'd say yum. But it says banana cream. Bump looked down at Duke and laughed. Score 1-0, Bump bragged. Next was donut tossing. Otis made the donuts for this event himself. You could break your tooth on these babies, Otis laughed. Besides being hard, the donuts were so heavy that Duke could barely lift them. Meanwhile, Bump tossed them around like pebbles. In fact, he accidentally tossed one so hard it missed the target and hit Duke right in the forehead. Guess who won that event? Bump laughed. Score 2 for Bump in the night, 0 for Bump in the head. Things don't look like they're going well for Duke, do they? There was just one event left, pastry pulling. Duke was determined to win, but he was tired and hungry, and he had a pounding headache. He doesn't look good. It's not a good way to go into an event. In the stands, Nona turned to Petunia to complain, but Petunia had left. Seeing that Duke was in trouble, she had decided to help. How, you ask? The way she always helped, by baking. Petunia had gone home, baked a peanut butter and tuna pot pie, hurried back to the stadium, and handed Duke the pie. As Duke ate, he noticed Bump sitting by himself. Bump looked mean as usual, but he also looked sad and lonely. Duke took the pie and sat down next to Bump. Would you like some? Asked Duke. Bump stared at him. Then he did an amazing thing. He started to cry. That's the nicest thing anybody said to me, he blubbered. You're a good knight, Duke. Duke said, maybe so, but you're a strong knight. Bump shook his head. I'm not strong. You're the one who's strong because you're nice. From now on, said Bump, I'm going to be strong like you. Even the dog looks happy. Duke and Bump finished the pot pie. Then they went on and pulled pastry. Bump won, of course, and was awarded the golden spatula. Bump could have been mean about winning, but instead he invited everyone to a party at Duke's castle. Because of Duke, Bump in the night had learned how to be strong, not by being mean, but by being nice. Otis, who was watching, leaned over to Nona. You know, I always liked that Bump in the night. Nona, who was eating a piece of pie, tried to come up with a complaint. But a funny thing happened. She couldn't think of a single one. It's nice when people can't think of bad things to say about you, even if they try. 1 Thessalonians in the Bible says, in 5:15 it says, make sure that nobody pays back one wrong against. I'm sorry, I got to start that over. Make sure that nobody pays back one wrong act with another. Always try to be kind to each other and to everyone else. So when someone does something unkind, you want to be kind back to them. I hope you like this book, and I hope you are kind to everyone, and even to those who aren't kind to you.